Well, hello. Pastor Ed here with Daily Devotions once again for Tuesday, August the 13th, 2024. Apologize for being away for a few weeks, more than a few weeks, I guess. There's just been a lot going on, as many of you know, in my life, particularly in the life of my daughter Caitlin, who I can report is doing well and hoping to come home from the hospital after receiving the stem cell transplant the other week, hoping to come home the end of this week. So things should be settling down a little bit for us, but it's been a kind of a crazy time period for us, and it's interesting that the devotions, I'm kind of taking them off of a devotional booklet that's called Christ in Our Home from some years ago, and I'm not doing them exactly the way that they're presented, but kind of taking the passages and kind of building off of that. And so each day will be a different Bible passage, a different theme, I guess you'd say. And it's interesting that the first passage that is day one in the book, this version of Christ in Our Home, is from Matthew 11. Verses 28 to 30. Let me just read that for you. Jesus said, "Come to me, all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Interesting that should be the first passage in the book that I'm basing my daily devotions on. Because that's certainly several verses that speak directly to me. Maybe they speak to you as well, or they have certainly at one time. The invitation when we're weary and carrying heavy burdens in life, whatever that might be. It might be related to our health. It might be related to our work, our home life, whatever the case may be. Many times we find ourselves, carrying heavy burdens and needing rest. And our schedules are so jam-packed these days, and those of our kids as well, that built-in time for rest that Sundays used to represent, certainly even in my youth, is not quite there anymore. The summer was a time for rest and relaxation and recovery, and it was a slower time. But now people pack their summers full of things. Vacation itself was a chance to get away and rest, and now we want to do so much on our vacations that, as I shared with somebody earlier today, sometimes we need a vacation from our vacation because they're so jam-packed full. So very often, and for many of us, and for the variety of reasons I just hinted at a little bit ago, there is not a lot of rest. We're maintaining this, which many times is an unhealthy pace of life, and just there's never a chance to relax. Came across an interesting illustration. A man by the name of John Patton was once translating the Bible for an island tribe in the South Seas. And he discovered that this particular group of people had no word for trust or faith. However, one day, one of the indigenous people who had been working hard came into the missionary's house, and he flopped himself into a large, comfortable chair, and he said, "It's good to rest my whole weight on this chair." And that became a revelation to Patton, again, who's trying to do the translation. He said, "That's it. I'll translate faith as resting one's whole weight on God." That Greek word where Jesus says at the end of verse 28, "Come to me, you that are weary and carrying heavy burdens, I will give you rest." It comes from a Greek word anapao, which means to cause or permit one to cease from any movement or labor in order to recover and collect one's strength, to give rest, to refresh, to give one's self some rest, to take rest. And again, so very often in our lives these days, especially, there aren't those moments to just relax and rest. And we carry so many burdens. And Jesus promises that we can lift some of those burdens off our shoulders. And he's the one who can do that. There's a great story that Bruce Larson once told, where he said, "For many years I worked in New York City and counseled at my office any number of people who were wrestling with the decision to surrender their lives to Christ. And he would often suggest that they walk with him from his office down to the RCA building on Fifth Avenue. And in the entrance of that building is this gigantic statue of Atlas, a beautifully proportioned man who, with all his muscles straining, is holding the whole world upon his shoulders. And there he is, the most powerfully built man in the world, and he can barely stand up under this burden." And Larson says, "Now that's one way to live," he'd point out to the person that he was showing this to, "trying to carry the whole world on your shoulders, but now come across the street with me," he'd say. And on the other side of Fifth Avenue is St. Patrick's Cathedral, and there behind the high altar is a little shrine of the boy Jesus, perhaps 8 or 9 years old, and with no effort at all, he's holding the world in one hand. My point, he says, was illustrated graphically. We have a choice. We can carry the whole world on our shoulders, or we can say, "I give up, Lord. Here's my life. I give you my world, the whole world." Alvin Rogness on these verses also pointed out there are things that come to rest when Christ takes over our lives. Old guilts that festered no longer hurt. Fears that exhausted one's strength lose their power. Inner storms find calm. Life on the outside may be ever so turbulent, and it's like, we can't escape the things that we encounter in life. But there is a new peace within, he suggests. And so he says 2 artists were once asked to draw their concept of peace. One put on his canvas a mountain lake sheltered on all sides by boulders, the surface of the waters like a mirror. The other one, on the other hand, drew a thundering waterfall, and at its base a birch tree, and in its branches a nest with a mother bird sweetly singing to her young. This, he says, is called peace. It doesn't mean that everything is perfectly tranquil. It's the ability to find peace even in the midst of the turbulence and the storms of life. And so he offers this short prayer. In the storms of life, O Lord, give us a place to sing. And I would just add to that, give us a place to rest, to find rest for our souls in you by stepping back. And people do that in all sorts of ways, and I'm probably one of the worst examples of not making that time. And it's something that I get reminded, my stubbornness, I get reminded all the time. And these past few months with things that happened here at church, with Josh's medical situation, my brother having a medical situation, my daughter's leukemia, and all of the things I felt on my shoulders, I ended up in the hospital myself with an experience of AFib, which clearly, even when I was talking to the cardiologist, was brought on by stress, by trying to shoulder all the burdens myself. And so I take particular interest in this reminder today, and maybe in your life you need to hear it as well, that we have to make time to find rest, to cease, to let go of trying to control everything ourselves, and to turn things over to God, whether that be some sort of meditation, prayer, whatever mechanism one might choose, but to make that time and carve out some time of rest each and every day, certainly each and every week as well. And with that thought, I'll leave you, and we'll pick up again with another devotion tomorrow. Until then, take care. It's good to be back with you. And I hope you'll come back, even though I was absent for so long. Take care. Bye.